All right, in this video, I'm going to teach you how to just pick an area and then study it by the blank sheet method. So this is a blank sheet, but this is the gluteal region. So this is the gluteal cleft, the butt. Then this is the posterior thigh, the back of your thigh. And I just have this simple outline so that I can start doing the work I need to do to understand this area. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in important landmarks. So a lot of them are going to be bony attachments. So for starters, the sacrum. We're looking at one leg, so this is half of the sacrum, and I'm just going to represent it like a triangle. The second super important structure that is going to be a part of this area is going to be this thing that is going to be the ischial tuberosity. So we got sacrum, ischial tuberosity. Why did I bring them up? Because we want to see a ligament. And that ligament is, of course, the sacrotuberous ligament. Now, the ligament is bigger than this, so that is sacrotuberous ligament. This is the setup so that we can accurately talk about these structures. So we need to know where these bones are. We need to know where these structures are because they're going to be some of our landmarks in this area to start learning these things. The other thing to note is above the ischial tuberosity, and I'm going to delete these lines after I make them, would be where the ischial spine is, which means there's another ligament. It's just deeper than the sacrotuberous ligament, meaning it is under the sacrotuberous ligament. There's a ligament going from the sacrum to this spine of the ischium that is crisscrossing, but underneath the sacrotuberous ligament. Right now, it looks like it's above it, but this thing would be underneath the sacrotuberous ligament. So we're actually going to see if we can push it backwards. I don't think we can, actually. But I know what I can do. Sacrotuberous ligament is on top of sacrospinous ligament. So I'm going to delete sacrospinous ligament in a second, but I want you to understand that they crisscross over each other. We're going to make that even more obvious. So they crisscross over each other. Sacrotuberous ligament is on top of, from this view, from a posterior view, sacrotuberous ligament is over sacrospinous ligament, but they are crisscrossing, and that crisscross creates the lesser sciatic foramen. So the lesser sciatic foramen is essentially the opening, the space created. We're going to have to do a lot of backtracking now that I'm on this tangent. The space that is created here, where we have this sacrotuberous ligament, sacrospinous ligament, and then this opening where things could theoretically, as they oftentimes do, pass through here. So we're going to have structures that are going to enter into this lesser sciatic foramen, and then if they come out of the lesser sciatic foramen, they are now in a new space. Now they are in the perineum, and they are very close to the anus, so they are in the anal triangle. And like I said, I'm going to get rid of that stuff so we can't see it anymore because it's going to gum up our picture otherwise. The other thing that I'm going to add in and then get rid of is our femur head is over here. So our femur head is in this area, and I don't really have enough room for it, but imagine that our greater trochanter is somewhere over here that is going to allow for attachment, and then the femur bone would actually go down and it would connect to the hip. I am not going to draw it all in. I just want you to remember that when I draw muscles that go out over here, they're usually attaching to the greater trochanter of the femur. So they're going to look like they go to nowhere, but that's typically where they're attaching. And that is our setup so that we can talk about the muscles in this area, the nerves in this area, and everything else we need to know, like the arteries in this area. And you can do this to practice at home because this is how we practice. Do I know this information or do I not know this information? What do I actually know? So the key to this region, in my opinion, is the piriformis muscle. So I say the key to the butt is the piriformis muscle. And the piriformis muscle is going to come out of, before we get there, I guess we have to discuss this, the greater sciatic foramen, which is above those ligaments. And I deleted one of them, so now I can't see. But this area is the greater sciatic foramen. Anything coming out up here into the gluteal region came through the greater sciatic foramen. So that is this hole, which is a gateway, and this is not going to be as good of an image of it, but it's a gateway from things that are inside the pelvis to get outside the pelvis and into the gluteal region. So that's what we're seeing here. And the piriformis is one of those structures. It starts on the inside in the pelvis and then exits through the greater sciatic foramen to get to the gluteal region. This is our piriformis muscle. And our piriformis muscle, as I said earlier, is the key to the butt because it is the muscle that is going to determine what is superior gluteal, what is inferior gluteal, and help us really understand what's going on in this area. So we love piriformis because it tells us other things, where other things are. For example, piriformis determines that if I see an artery coming out here, that artery has to be, cannot be anything else, a superior gluteal artery because of where it is. In the same way, if I saw a vein or multiple veins running up here in this area, superior gluteal vein. If I see a nerve, yes, you guessed it, it is a superior gluteal nerve. I don't care about anything else, as long as it is above the piriformis and is in this space, it is superior gluteal everything. The same is true, same concept is true for structures that come out below piriformis, but below piriformis we have to be a little more clear about where things are going. So if I see structures coming out like that artery, nerve, vein, below piriformis, might see an artery like this, might see a vein like this. The reality is, if you are one of the students watching this video that has a practical, it depends how you opened up this space, what these will look like. It depends what kind of reflection you did. So in a lot of cases, it will not look like this. You will not see full vessels. You will not see a full nerve. You will actually see just a lumen. So you'll see something that looks more like this, where you have just a nub of your vein and just a nub of your artery, or several nubs of those structures, because you cut them on purpose, not on accident, on purpose, because of the way that you opened up this space. So if you see cut vessels, that's normal because of how we had to reflect our gluteus maximus away from this area. If you opened it like a book, so your gluteus maximus is reflected this direction, all of these are cut, otherwise you can't do it. These are not, because they don't go to the gluteus maximus, but the inferior gluteal artery, nerve, and vein are definitely going to the gluteus maximus. So you'll also probably have a little nerve nub, or nerves are stronger, so you might still see an attachment to the gluteus maximus, but inferior gluteal nerve is 100% going to the gluteus maximus because it innervates it. So that is what you may or may not see depending on how you open it up. If you did the opposite thing, where you cut off gluteus maximus out laterally and then reflected it inwards, which I hate because it looks weird, then you won't have these cut, but it will be a little disorienting, in my opinion. So you'll see that. Another thing you will see, and this is, I'm just going to change the color of this nerve so that it makes sense, is you might see a nerve that comes into this area and then beelines towards the sacrotuberous ligament, runs under it, so we lose it for a second, and then comes out here, which we discussed earlier, means that it is now in the perineum. And that should be enough information to tell you what this nerve is, because this nerve is the nerve that innervates the perineum, which is the one and only pudendal nerve. You would also see the internal pudendal artery running here, as well as the internal pudendal vein. All three of those structures, I'm just labeling the nerve, are going to be running in this area. because they're headed to the perineum. We're going to lose track of these in the gluteal region because it came through greater sciatic foramen, then left the gluteal region through the lesser sciatic foramen to then get to the perineum. And it's going to go from the anal triangle up towards anteriorly towards the urogenital triangle to innervate basically everything of your perineum. So that's another one we're going to see in this area, but we don't just name it because it came out below the piriformis. We name it because we know where it was headed. We follow its path to identify what it is. Okay, what else are we going to see? Well, we should see a huge nerve that I've ignored up until this point. And that huge nerve is also coming out in this same area below piriformis. I'm going to draw it like it's starting here, but it came out of that greater sciatic foramen. I'm just not trying to mess up my drawing too completely, but we're going to make it massive because it is. This is a massive nerve. It's about the circumference of your thumb in the lab. This is the largest nerve in the human body. Because it's kind of a misnomer, this nerve is actually two nerves in a sheath. But we call this nerve collectively, and everybody freaking loves this nerve, the sciatic nerve. And this sciatic nerve is a polarizing nerve because you either love it or you hate it. Because if you hate it, you're probably having problems with it. So your sciatic nerve is really two nerves in a sheath. And I will go to my grave arguing this because some people say the sciatic nerve is a nerve that innervates stuff. And I say, what does the sciatic nerve innervate? I'll wait. And if you say, well, the tibial division of the sciatic nerve, then you're just saying what I'm saying, that they're really two nerves in a sheath. So sciatic nerve is going to give off the tibial nerve, or it is the tibial nerve, and the common fibular nerve in a sheath. So sciatic nerve comes out below piriformis, and then goes into the posterior thigh region. And it doesn't just stop in the posterior thigh region. What happens in the posterior thigh region is we stop seeing that sheath, and we're going to see something like this, where we get a split. And one branch goes off laterally, the other branch goes medially or more straight down usually. And that's how we are going to be able to identify these nerves, because the one that heads more lateral is always going to be common fibular, because common fibular nerve, or peroneal is the old word for it. Common fibular or peroneal nerve heads lateral because it heads towards the head of the fibula. So the fibula is a lateral leg bone, a bone in your leg that is more lateral, more on the outside. And it is common fibular because it is about to become specific. It's going to split into two other nerves. We'll get there in a different video. So this is common fibular nerve in the posterior thigh. If you have somebody lecturing that is a little bit more advanced in age, they're going to call it peroneal. They're going to get mad at you for saying fibular. The truth is they're not with the times, because we have switched the names because this just makes more anatomical sense. But when you're in surgeries, when you're doing different things, you're going to hear peroneal, so I'm going to give it to you here as well. So tibial nerve is the other nerve on the other side, more medially. So sciatic nerve is really just common fibular and tibial nerve in a sheath, but it comes out right below the piriformis. If you have a syndrome called piriformis syndrome, it means your sciatic nerve is coming out in the piriformis muscle belly, which means every time you contract your piriformis, which is what you do when you're walking, because this is a lateral rotator of the hip, and you definitely need to laterally rotate or externally rotate your hips, your thighs at your hips when you are walking. So that will hurt this nerve. It will compress this nerve every time you walk if it is inside of. This is a very common variation called piriformis syndrome, where the sciatic nerve is actually coming out in between the muscle fibers of the piriformis. That sucks, because that's going to cause nerve problems all the way down the sciatic nerve and all of the things the sciatic nerve really becomes, which is a lot. So we'll get there in a different video, but that is one syndrome related to this nerve. Okay, so those are some of the things. There's one more thing. In a lot of curriculums, they bring this up. I don't know why. I don't know why we're still doing it. I think in some schools we're not doing it anymore, but because it's a thing, I'm going to bring it up, and it's going to be a really random color. It's going to be purple. It's a nerve though, so I apologize if having a purple nerve bothers you. This is another nerve that comes out below piriformis, but this is a nerve that is often cut. But if it's not cut, kind of goes like this, wraps around the gluteal cleft. It doesn't look like that. It looks more like this. It's going to wrap around like this. It has this very classic wraparound thing going on over this fold of the gluteal, the butt. I'm just going to say butt. So this is the posterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh. So this is cutaneous, meaning it goes to the skin. Cutaneous means skin. This nerve goes to the skin. If you are dissecting, you probably cut this nerve. It is now what I call a loose nerve. So it has no thing that it attaches to at the end. That's okay. If you see a loose nerve here, it's either going to be the posterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh, which just innervates some skin back here, or it's this inferior gluteal nerve that went to the gluteus maximus that may also be cut. So there are two nerves that are probably cut in this dissection, hopefully none of the others. There's the posterior cutaneous nerve of the thigh or the inferior gluteal nerve that goes to the gluteus maximus. I didn't say what the other nerves actually innervate. This is superior gluteal nerve, artery, vein. What are they going to? Why are they up here? Well, they're innervating your gluteus medius, gluteus minimus, and a muscle called the tensor fascia lata. Possibly with two T's. I don't remember. Tensor fascia lata. So those muscles are up in this region. The gluteus maximus has obviously been removed from our little schematic here, but the superior gluteal stuff, superior gluteal artery, nerve, vein, are associated with these three muscles. That is what's going on there. We do not need to think about that any more than that. These three muscles, now I'm thinking it as one T, are the muscles that are innervated by the superior gluteal nerve, that are supplied by and drained by the superior gluteal artery and vein. So that's what's going on here. And I've made it hopefully clear that the gluteus maximus is inferior gluteal stuff. Okay, so that's a lot of the nerves in this area. Where are they in relation to the muscles in this area? Now, obviously, I just said I've removed gluteus maximus from this picture. It would be taking up so much space, it would be absurd because it attaches to the IT band way down here, goes over everything. I'm just going to do this really quick. Attaches to our sacrum, our ilium, huge muscle. It's why it's called maximus. It covers up all this stuff. I can't have it in the picture or we can't see anything. So in lab, it's usually reflected off to the side, kind of like this. And so I want you to imagine that that has happened. And we're actually going to look at the deeper muscles in this area, the little muscles in this area that have a very fun little acronym called P-GO-GO-Q. If you don't know what that is, you're going to know what that is, so don't worry. P-GO-GO-Q stands for the muscles that do lateral rotation of the hip, of the thigh at the hip. So that is going to be muscles that typically attach to the greater trochanter or the intertrochanteric line of the femur head. So we have P, piriformis. That's one of those muscles. G, the first G is for gemelli number 1. So gemelli number 1 is going to be the first gemellus muscle that is going to attach from the ischium to the femur head. All right, so it's a little bit hard to show here because I deleted some things that we need. The ischial spine was around this little spot right here, and that is where I'm going to start this muscle. I'm going to go straight over top of these nerves, or actually, better yet, no, I can't delete them. I'm going to go over them because this is a muscle that goes under them. Everybody remember that. It goes under them. It starts from the ischial spine, and then it's going to go under these, and it's going to come out and attach to that greater trochanter of the femur. This is a tiny little muscle, so small. So, so, so small. Here, I'll make it look like it actually does because I'm a perfectionist and we have problems. So this is the superior gemellus muscle. I say gemelli. You're going to hear me say it. I apologize. Or no, I don't apologize because that's just a fun word to say. This is the superior gemellus muscle. It is the first G in our P-go-go-Q. Let me put P-G-O. G-O-Q. So we got this weird acronym that is P-go-go-Q. And as we learn the muscles, we're going to add their names. So first one is piriformis of our P. Now we just learned the next one is superior gemellus. Nope, don't change my words. But this is superior, so I'm going to add a little superior. Just like a little sup. We're going to make it smaller. I wrote soup. I didn't mean to. Or it corrected it to soup. Who the hell knows? So we got a superior gemellus. If you guessed, yeah, we have an inferior one too. This is inferior gemellus. I'm just going to add it now because we're going to see it in a second. Cool, cool, cool. What is the O? The first O is the O we can see from this view. Okay? And that's very specific. The O we can see from this view. The other O is still a lateral rotator, but I can't see it from this view. These are both obturator muscles. So this is obturator internus. So we can see it. So this is obturator internus is the first O. You guessed it. Obturator externus is the second O. Obturator externus is usually considered an anterior thigh muscle. It is very deep. So we cannot see it from this view because we're in the posterior gluteal region. And the last one, because we're just doing them apparently, is quadratus femoris, which is a square muscle, and we're going to see it. So this is our P-go-go-Q. These are all of our lateral rotators of the hip. So that means I'm rotating my femur at the hip joint where the femur and the pelvis connect, the os coxa, if you will. So there's our superior gemellus. It's the first one after piriformis in a row. So we got superior gemellus, then what? Then the coolest one from this angle, I think, which is through the lesser side of foramen. So from inside the pelvis, but through the lesser side of foramen, being a real, rule breaker, unique individual, comes our obturator internus muscle, which is going to go through here, come out. I know I made it look all bendy because it kind of is bendy. It's really strange. It's going to go through from the pelvis, the pelvic wall, really, and then it's going to come out lesser sciatic foramen. And then when we see it in this area, this is very specific. When we see it in this area, it is tendinous. It is not looking like a muscle. So we need to make that clear. This is a tendon portion of this muscle. This is the obturator internus tendon that we're going to see. So I'm actually going to write that here. You're going to want to say it's the obturator internus. People are going to get really specific about it. They're going to call it the obturator internus tendon. But it does have a really weird path to get here to be a lateral rotator of the thigh. So I'm just putting it in like this for you. Then we run into our next gemellus. We're like, yay, we love those. Ischial tuberosity to that greater trochanter. It's so great. It just gets all the freaking muscles going to it. So that's our inferior gemellus. Remember, every single muscle we have talked about does the same action here. So we don't need to worry. We just need to be able to identify them. That's it. That's inferior gemellus. And then the last one on the list is quadratus femoris. Did I leave enough room for quadratus femoris? So quadratus femoris, I didn't really leave enough room for it. So we're just gonna imagine that I didn't make gemelli so big. It's right below the gemelli, and it actually does have a slightly different attachment than everybody else here. It's supposed to look like a square. I know in this image I'm making it doesn't, but it would in lab. It will look a lot more squarish in lab. But this is quadratus femoris muscle. also known as quad fem. And quadratus femoris, I said it doesn't go to the greater trochanter, it goes to the intertrochanteric crest. It has its own tubercle there. Yippee, dippy, skippy. Who cares? No one cares. Instead, we just know now that these go in order. The only one we can't see from this angle is this view is the obturator externus, which is in the anterior thigh, very, very deep, like on the pelvis bones. So we can see all of our lateral rotators of the thigh in our gluteal region. And the other lateral rotator of the thigh, I will chuck this out there so that you don't have a lack of information, is actually going to be your gluteus maximus that we totally deleted from this picture so we could focus on the little muscles in the gluteal region, the deeper muscles in this region. Now, in lab, you ain't gonna see this, but in life, and in lecture, we should say, there are more nerves coming out of here. We never see them. They're very deep. They're usually under the muscles, but I'm going to draw them in anyway so that you have a very full picture. The nerve to obturator internus is going to innervate, not just the obturator internus muscle, but also the superior gemellus. It has a unique path of getting there. It goes like its muscle belly, ... through the lesser sciatic foramen to get there. So we have innervated obturator internus muscle and superior gemellus with a nerve to obturator internus. That's weird. So these guys share the same innervation. Nerve to obturator internus innervates both superior gemellus and obturator internus, goes through lesser sciatic foramen. How fun. The other nerve in this area that we need to know is the nerve that gets both of these guys, the inferior gemellus and the quadratus femoris. I skipped obturator externus because obturator externus is not in this area, is innervated by the obturator nerve in a different area. Okay. These two are innervated by nerve to quadratus femoris. Here's what I want you to see. Nerve to obturator internus, that's the second muscle down in this visual right here. It's the second one we can see. Nerve to quadratus femoris, second one we can see. So they're grouped in twos, in pairs, and you name the nerve that innervates them for the second muscle in the pair, if you go in order. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that's not confusing. But if you need the specifics, if you need the details, because whoever's lecturing you, whatever curriculum you're in, is like really, really weird about it, this one would come down, go underneath, and innervate these two guys. So that is the setup for here. What innervates piriformis? I didn't talk about it because it's just the nerve to piriformis, which is going to be under the muscle belly, but also in this area potentially. Obturator externus, we're in a totally different area, has a different innervation. Okay, this is the gluteal region. What did I not include? I didn't draw in our gluteus minimus, which would be the deepest one. I didn't draw in our gluteus medius, which would be on top of the minimus, and I didn't draw in the TFL, which is actually more of an anterior thigh-ish muscle. It's lateral, I would say, and you would find it inside the IT band because it literally tenses the IT band and the fascia that surrounds the thigh, the fascia lata. So these three muscles, this is what you need to know about them. We'll go into more detail of these guys later, but this is the gluteal region, and this is how I would practice it. Learn everything that's in that region. From memory, see what you know. Whatever you know, what you can put down on this picture is what you know. That's okay. This doesn't have to be a visual picture. It could just be words. But we need to see what we know, and then we're going to add details later. The next thing I would do is move on to the posterior thigh. All of our hamstrings started our ischial tuberosity. Do I know that? Do I know which ones are more medial and which ones are on top of each other? And do I know what muscle is more lateral and has two heads? So that's our biceps femoris long head, our semitendinosus, and our semimembranosus. And then our short head has a totally different attachment. We need to talk about it. Our short head has a different innervation. It's common fibular nerve. Those are the kind of things that we need to start putting into our pictures. Join us next time. I'll pick a new area. We'll go through it.